that ship has sailed. I think
Your voice still seems distant. I don't know if the microphone can just come down and come
right.
straight, like, I don't know, something like that.
How about now? Is that
It,
better?
I know it's ridiculous that you have to put your mouth so close. I don't know why,
Yeah,
but
that's fine.
somehow there's a technique that you can just
It's a
get lower.
condenser mic. I don't know why it does this, but anyway, as I was saying,
I think it's better now. Go
so
on.
so I should specify first of all that the point of this isn't to get a judicial outcome in Nigerian courts, because I think that ship has already sailed.
Right.
I don't think a Nigerian court is going to deliver justice. I think based on what we saw at the appeal courts, we know exactly where Nigerian judges stand and what Nigerian judges are capable of. So that ship has sailed. The point of this is twofold. First of all, this was a process that started even before the presidential election the tribunal took off, because this actually started in March when I first sent off this freedom of information requests. So myself, in conjunction with Aaron Greenspan of Plainsight, you might know of Plainsight.org. It's a US organization that's basically, the purpose of Plainsight is to put public interest information into the public domain using FOIAs and strategic litigation. So, in conjunction with Aaron, we had sent out these freedom of information requests to six U.S. government agencies. That's the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the FBI, the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA, the Drug Enforcement Administration, DEA, the Department of State, or the State Department as it's known, the U.S. attorneys, and the IRS, that's the Internal Revenue Service. So basically, the idea was whatever information that these institutions hold about this person, whatever files that they maintain on him, since this person is now, this is now public information. This person is no longer a private citizen. This person at the time was a president elect, so there's no longer any excuse for holding on to that information. Because last year, when I was researching him and all these other stories, the reason why I wasn't able to get hold of some of this other information was they said he was just a private citizen. Even if he's running an election, he's still a private citizen. He doesn't have a public office yet, so there's no justification to hand it over. But now, okay, he has supposedly won that election. This was in March, so hand over this information because now he's a public official. And initially, when they got back to us, I think in either late June or early July, the initial indication was no, we're not going to give you this information. And these quote unquote privacy concerns were still being invoked at the time, which obviously we disagreed with, because why are you invoking privacy considerations for a head of state, for the president of a sovereign country? So, in collaboration with Aaron, I took this matter to court. So obviously Aaron is based in the US, so he was better able to actually do the filing, while I pretty much funded the entire thing from start to finish, which was expensive. But the point of it, I didn't really think much was going to come out of it. But I thought, look, I feel like part of the reason why Nigerian public officials get away with these things is because not many people actually try hard enough to call them out on it, or to dig deeply enough that, okay, this thing is going to cost me money. It's cost me close to $1,000 up to date, and the only reason it hasn't cost me more is because we were able to get a lawyer who actually worked on it pro bono. Because if we had to pay a lawyer, that would have been, potentially even outside of my budget. Would have been talking 20, $30,000, which is money I really don't have to spare. So fortunately, we were able to find a lawyer, and we basically sued these six organizations: the CIA, the FBI, the IRS, the DEA, the State Department, and the U.S. attorneys. And when they got back to us in July, what they said was, uh, this case potentially will not be, have any sort of resolution until potentially 2026. So that's the date that was bandied around at the time, 2026. But we still kept going anyway, even though we didn't really expect much to come of it yet. And then last Friday, I just come out of the shower. I've been in the shower for a long time, and I looked at my phone, and it was a message from Aaron. And I was like, I have very good news. And I was like, what do you mean by that? And then he sent me this document, which everyone now has now seen. This document, which is now on the screen, and I scanned through it. in like 30 seconds. And I was shocked that, wait, they're basically handing over all this information. Like, where did this come from? And he was like, well, I don't know either, but there's a possibility a lot of it might be redacted. But on the surface, it seems as if they've basically just decided to capitulate and hand everything over. We don't know why. We honestly don't know. I would love to take the credit for it, but the truth is we don't know why.
Right.
We weren't expecting this. This came out of nowhere.
So
So, but
it means like it's going to be like a Pandora, like everybody is
yeah,
expecting. But at the
yeah,
same time, right? I haven't kind of experienced what Nigerians experience in the hands of the PEP, what do we call them, right?
yeah,
So a lot of people feel like, you know, what would this change? Like in the scheme of things, so to say, okay, is it just to establish some certain I don't know, like what would this change in your own view? I understand that the intention at the time was just for research purpose. Now you're
yes,
about to get something huge that even yourself will have to be busy for a while once this information begin to roll out, right? But
yes,
before now, everyone thought this kind of information will help in getting rid of this illegitimate guy, right, in
yeah.
Nigeria, among other things. Or with what they experience, would this, do you think, like, there's still Supreme Court there, sure you get. Eh? So do you, like I asked you the last time, like, do you think this could change anything? Or what would it change?
So I don't think the purpose of this is to change anything within the Nigerian judicial system, because I fully expect that the Supreme Court, which is presided over by Kayode Ariwola, will happily give a verdict stating that 2 plus 2 is 95. Right? I completely expect that to happen. However, what this will achieve, if the information that we know for a fact is being held is actually released in full and is not distorted or redacted in such a way as to make it, unusable. If this information is put out into the public domain, what it will do is that, first of all, it will once and for all establish factually that these things which we have known, which we have proven, and which we have published for a certain amount of time now, that these things are in fact true, and that there is no, like, every sort of burden of proof has been satisfied, right? Because up until this point, the excuse has been, oh well, there was just a forfeiture, there wasn't really a conventional conviction, blah blah blah. The some so and so and so, one excuse after the other. But when you have the FBI releasing 2,500 pages on one individual, bear in mind that Pablo Escobar, his FBI file had about 2,600 pages in it.
Hmm.
Pablo Escobar himself had 2,600 pages. Malcolm
The-
X had about 2,400 pages. So what on earth does do they have on this guy that makes them have 2,500 pages on him? And bear in mind that's just the FBI, right? The other agencies also have their own
agencies too.
information on him. The
Hmm.
IRS, the CIA, the DEA, the State Department, So, and they are complying with the FY as well. So what
Good.
this will do is it will once and for all establish that this person is exactly what we said he is, first of all, and then
And
more
that,
importantly,
because I'm
any
so
sort of
sorry that because of our time, yeah, because I still have like about two ones I wanted to cover. And if, okay, hang on. Does that still stand that you need to leave like in about 6 minutes?
I think I can do
We
like
have
another
increased an
15,
extra 10
probably.
minutes just into it, and then yeah,
Yeah,
we can
yeah,
continue. Is that all right?
yeah,
I'm sorry that a
yeah,
lot
yeah,
of
that's
people
fine.
want to listen to you, right? They will feel like I'm going
Yeah,
to be
that's fine.
leading you, but they won't understand the fact that I'm struggling to make sure that nothing is left out. So if you give us that grace, right? Now I'm going to just push
Yeah,
this
sure.
to you, okay?
Yeah.
This issue of election and tribunal has further exposed, right, the vulnerability,
Mm-hmm.
partly the corrupt side of the Nigerian judiciary, and it has also exposed
Yeah.
the validity or sort of the power of Nigeria constitution for real in practice, apart from all the fancy words they put in it, right? That if
Yes.
you have to put Nigerian constitution for real, eh, so this judgment that happened and the way it all went is, for that kind of proof that this 1999 constitution, eh, is going to continue to be the albatross, and is going to continue to be the one that will be cementing every corrupt process, no matter any effort to changing them. So, what do you think, as somebody who is more vast in all of this? There are conversations now around a constitutional conference, a national sovereign conference, a conversation around Nigeria, starting with the people of Abuja that are also demanding judicial explanation on why the constitution says they are this, and then the tribunal turned it around and said, no, you are not. Question around the constitution. What would be your own view around that? Do you think this is actually going to lead to that now?
So it's difficult to say, because one thing that this tribunal showed me was what one of the most basic principles in law, in jurisprudence, is precedent. Right? Judges love precedent. So ideally, when legal precedent has been established, judges tend to follow precedents, and it's very rare for judges to completely break with precedents and basically overturn something that a judgment that had been delivered before. But in the course of this tribunal at the appeal court, we didn't see that once, twice, three. We saw it like 50 times, like completely unprecedented stuff. So my fear is that anybody who is trying to use these things as precedents, right? For example, the Abuja indigents, who are now demanding for a governor and for senators, since they are supposedly classified as any other states in Nigeria now. I fear that what they will find is that they will take this matter to a court, and the court will say that yes, the appeal court said that 2 plus 2 is 9, and the appeal court created a precedent that 2 plus 2 is 9, but this court is still going to rule that 2 plus 2 is 4 for no reason, and there's nothing you can do about it. If I know Nigeria very well, I think that's what they would do, which is why I've been very vocal about the idea that Nigerians themselves need to stand up and do something. Because at this point, the people who are in charge of Nigeria are not pretending to be law abiding. They are not pretending to care about, abiding by any constitution or any law or any legality. They are not pretending. The people who are ruling Nigeria are actively raising a middle finger to you and telling you what are you going to do about it. So I think at this point, the people themselves need to prove a point. However, that point is going to be proven, it's not for me to prescribe. The people themselves have to make that decision. But the point is that the judicial system, as we know it now, is completely unfit for purpose. Nigeria, as we know it now, doesn't have a judiciary. That's the problem. So, whatever the appeal court has done, I fear that it's going to be irrelevant in the larger scheme of things, because I feel like the judiciary doesn't even respect itself enough to even acknowledge that, okay, certain precedent has been set. I think Nigerian judges are completely shameless people who will say this thing tomorrow, say something completely contradictory the day after, and then they will look in your eye and tell you, I didn't say it. Right? You show them video evidence that they said it, and they'll say it's a lie, you doctored the video. That's who they strike me as, completely shame-free entities. So at this point, I don't consider Nigeria to be a country that has a judiciary, that has judges or justices. I don't consider Nigeria to be a country that has a justice system. So I think the people themselves at this point need to be forcefully making a point that you cannot treat us like cattle. You cannot treat us as if you cannot insult our intelligence, because that was my main takeaway from the PEPT, that the very basic intelligence of allegedly 200 million Nigerians does not even matter to these people. These people will insult you to your face. They will tell you that you are stupid and there's nothing you can do about it. So I think, from a Nigerian point of view, Nigerians should be basically the ones making that decision now. That is that characterization of us accurate? Are we actually stupid, or can we do better? It's up to Nigerians.
We invested a lot, right? Apart from money, you invested what I believe your own freedom in bringing to the attention of a lot of Nigerians. And you are highly respected for that. And at the same time, you are highly loathed for that as well. For those who feel like you will do all of this for nothing, it's just, you won't be the first. In fact, the Legiwa, we have all of these people. And a lot of them are actually wishing what happened to those people to happen to you, so as for you to stop wasting your time. So, as an advocate, somebody who knew Nigerian system so much and for time and all those investments I just mentioned now, okay? As an advocate of what I would say maybe due process, all right, which led to election participation and all of that. And after all of this, some people are saying that Nigerians shouldn't even have participated in the election in the first place. Others are saying they wouldn't have found out if they didn't, because they would still have done what they would do anyway. Then others are saying that the moment they are making those false announcements, after all that happened, that was the moment the real people who actually indeed wanted these guys out should have hit the streets. They didn't. All right. Then they waited, still following the due process. They waited on the judiciary to possibly set the record straight. Now, the same judiciary, partly right now, has sort of given them a middle finger as well. So, don't you think it is already too late to start fighting the cheating after participating so fully to this point? Others as well, just before, as an add-on, there are others that are saying the people should, in fact, get ready for another election in 2027. If the court is gone, if the electoral process is gone, like, don't you think it is actually so late now to want to now fight what should have been fought at the infancy, like when it all started? Your view, David?
Well, so first of all, I think participation in the election itself, I think it needed to happen because I think the people who run Nigeria, they're very good at setting narratives internationally. If young people had not participated in that election and they had just gone on, on a rampage, on a protest or whatever, the people who are in charge would have found a way to frame it to the world as if there's this small group of people in Nigeria who are just anarchists. Because that's how they almost successfully framed NSARS. They framed it like it was a small group of anarchists who were trying to start some kind of color revolution and take over the country for no reason. Meanwhile, that's not what it was. It was a very broad-based, general youth protest movement. So when dealing with these people, it's very important to know how to sort of play the game as well. So there are certain processes that even if the end result of the process, we know what it's going to be. Even if obviously you win the election, they're not going to give it to you. You still have to go through that process because if you don't, then they will turn it onto your head. Then they will make it look like, you see, there is an electoral process, there's a democratic process. Why couldn't you just follow the democratic process? They will gaslight you basically, and in front of the world, they will twist the whole narrative and make it look like you are the aggressor. So it's very important to have to actually go through that process. That okay, we should do a political movement, Abi. We've done a political movement. We should compete in the election, Abi. We competed. We should win the election, Abi. We won. If we didn't feel satisfied, we should go to court, Abi, which is the due process thing. We've gone to court. And now that we have exhausted all those things that the system supposedly has put in place for us to achieve what we want, we have now demonstrated to the world without any shred of doubt that the system doesn't intend to reform itself and it's not actually possible to change the system from within. At that point, when people now hit the streets and basically scatter everything, you cannot tell them anything again. You can't tell them there's something they should have done. Because bear in mind, all of this started with NSARS, right? And at the end of NSARS, that was the Jedi mind trick that they used to gaslight everybody. They said, you should never have gone onto the streets. You should never have protested, blocked a road. Why did you do that? That does not achieve anything. Go and queue up behind the candidates. You people have numbers. Go and form yourself with a political movement and go and elect leaders who will listen to you. That was obviously they knew very well they had no intention of actually letting such a thing happen. They were just talking rubbish as they always do to try and make you feel like, somehow whatever happened was your fault. And the Lekki massacre was your fault. There's a way you could have avoided it. That was what the point of all that stupid talk was. But obviously, without actually going through this process, we wouldn't have been able to prove that that's what they were trying to do, that they were just talking stupid talk. Now there's evidence. Now there's proof. Now you can't tell these young people anything because they've seen with their own two eyes. Nigeria has never had this level of voter registration before and voter participation before. And the way the system retaliated, first of all, did its best to disenfranchise as many people as possible. Make sure people didn't get their PVCs, or people PVCs were showing up inside forests, inside gutter, buried, all sorts of rubbish. And then on the day, they were shifting people's polling units like kilometers away, where they know people won't have any chance to vote. All sorts of things. In spite of all of that, you still lost by a landslide. And then the so-called live electronic transmission, you switched it, turned it off for the presidential election. So at every step of the way, the people did what they were supposed to do. And the system, as far as I'm concerned, the system exposed itself. Because one thing about Nigeria that I've noticed I was small is that Nigeria will do horrible things to you, but will leave just enough of a space to give itself plausible deniability, so that you'll be accusing it, and it will deny. Whoever is in power will deny. They'll say it's a lie. It's not true. But for the first time, this election made it such that the people in power actually exposed themselves fully, where it's not in doubt who won that election and who was nowhere close to winning it. And then we saw things we've not seen before. We saw people, using TPEX on result sheets. And all of this was captured in real time. There's dozens and thousands of pages of evidence which was documented in real time. So as far as I'm concerned, the real court wasn't the one that so-called Justice Samani was presiding over. The real court was that of public opinion, because people were watching what was happening in real time. The reason I say that is important is because the next time that there is any kind of spark or stimulus for young Nigerians to hate history, we don't know what it will be. We don't know when it will be. Just like we didn't see NSAS coming, we don't know when it will be. What we do know is that it will come. When it comes, at that point, there's nothing that you are going to tell those young people. If you threaten them with weapons, well, you've shot them before. They don't care. They'll be expecting to die already. You cannot tell them, oh, why didn't you go and vote? Because they went to vote and you disenfranchised them and then you stole their results. There's nothing you want to tell them again. So that's why I said it was very important to go through this process. So now that we've gone through this process, the system, as far as I'm concerned, the people who are in charge, they might be celebrating because they think they won a victory, but it's the kind of victory that I call a Pyrrhic victory, because it's a victory that in itself ensures that the seeds for your eventual loss have been planted. Whether they realize that or not is a different issue. But,
Now, a final one, okay, just before you go, okay, David, having experienced all of this now, a lot of Nigerians, eh, across
yeah,
all ethnic, religious, tribal, what have you, yeah, decided they were baited. That's the word I use on this platform. They were baited, believed to make, they were made to believe that it was going to be different this time around. Now, it's going to be a bit difficult to get to then kind of maybe a year or two from now, begin to preach to them again that, oh, it is also possible now. Let's do it again. When the same system, the same rotten system that ensured that, they fostered disenfranchisement, like you put it, right? And
yeah.
what happened? Which, unfortunately, when all these things happens, right? Unfortunately, it further divide Nigerians. It was like an avenue to further divide Nigerians among those who said, we have told you, we saw this coming. How could you not? And then to those who are like, we don't care. You either take it or you leave it. So, David, using your own position among the young people, even among the older generation, would you not kind of subscribe to an idea where every one of us uses our platform to encourage a change in that system, starting with that fraudulent constitution before any election again, rather than get so boxed to the corner until another time presents itself that everybody will just be like, no, you can't do anything. You just have to go through it again. I mean, what do you think?
I agree. I completely agree. However, as I said, before getting to this point, we had to exhaust all the opportunities for the system to gaslight us first. So now, at this point, if anyone is pushing for a constitutional conference or for even more extreme solutions than a constitutional conference, I'm sure you know what I'm referring to. At this point, you cannot tell such people anything. You can't tell them that they're wrong, right? But it was important that we had to go through all of that first. Before now, at this point, I completely agree. Every potential solution beyond what has been tried is on the
Which
table
is
now.
this system has to change before anybody is
Yeah,
forced to go and participate in another
yeah,
charade, which is their
yeah,
trade. They are already planning towards next election anyway. You know that.
exactly.
So why
Which
should
which
anybody be
with
part of that?
and
Mhm.
why on earth would it, an election which is being administered by Bola Tinubu
Predetermined. Mhm.
go against the interests of Bola Tinubu? That's ridiculous. We went through the same thing in 2019, where after people deceive themselves, oh, we'll vote him out if he doesn't perform well. Well, Buhari told you point blank, I'm not going to lose that election. Now, between God and man, there is, I don't think anybody actually believes that Buhari actually won that election in 2019. But we know how it went. So 2027 isn't going to be any different, which is why I'm not interested in hearing anything about 2027. As I said, it was important to go through what we went through in 2023, so that now at this point, any solution that is proposed beyond what has already been tried is on the table, right? Up to and including the ones from the people that we don't even like, right? The people who talk about Biafra and all these things. Those solutions are on the table now.
You know where I'm going. You know where I'm going because they are those who are now pretty much like, what happened to your PVC now? And people like who invested a
Yeah.
lot in educating the people and encourage them to actually participate. It's not just working to get people to participate. People actually participated. After all of that, those who rejected and said they will have predetermined the whole thing. Like they are now pretty much like, that's why we never participated. That's why I asked that, won't it make much sense now for everybody to now kind of agree now that even if you want to have Biafra, Yoruba nation and the rest of that, this particular system has to go first. And we cannot drop all the pretense and the division, right? And address the main thing where we can say, okay, you know what? David.
At this point, I mean, as I said, every solution is on the table because the Nigerian system has given such people the right to propose such solutions, right? So at this point, you can no longer accuse people of being Confucianists, of being anarchists, of being, criminals and separatists. You can't accuse people of anything anymore because people have gone through the prescribed system now. The only part of the system that hasn't been tried yet is the Supreme Court, and we already know what's going to happen in the Supreme Court. So, at least for the sake of optics, we'll go through that Supreme Court process as well. And when the system does the only thing it knows how to do and makes a mockery of the Supreme Court as well, at that point, whoever it is that is proposing any solution above and beyond all the ones that we have tried within the current system, you cannot tell them anything. I will never get up and talk down on anybody who proposes any of those solutions again, because at that point it should have been clear that the system has reached its limits. This is as far as you can go within the system. This is as far as the system will allow. So if you want to have a better life than this, you need to break out of the system. It's as simple as that. So except the system decides to wake up and smell the coffee and realize that this is unsustainable and it has to give concessions, which it's not going to because it's not in Tinubu's nature. Tinubu is like a rat. All he knows how to do is eat. He doesn't understand the concept of taking note of other people and concessions. He doesn't want. All he knows is power. It's eat.
Whatever
So when
not do, more money will do it.
exactly, so when they inevitably do what they're going to do with the Kaide Ariola Supreme Court, at that point, anybody at all, be
All
it
options is now on the table.
be it the Constitutional Conference people, be it the NINAS people, be it the IPOB people, be it the Oduduwa Republic people, be it the Middle Belt, whatever it is, every solution is going to be on the table, and no one will be able to blame anybody but the system itself for having created this. Because by the way, Nigeria is not the first country where such things will happen.
No.
After the system makes a mess of itself in the way it has done, like this, Sudan did very similar things. We know how the story ended for them, how it still ended for them, right? The country formerly known as Yugoslavia did similar things. We know how it ended for them, and how it's still ending for them. So unfortunately, it's up to the Nigerian system itself. I mean, it's not me, it's not you who's going to make any of this happen. It's the Nigerian system itself, as far as I'm concerned, that is making all of this happen. So the biggest influencer, the biggest advertiser, the biggest motivator of all these solutions that are going to come out of this is the Nigerian system itself.
That's
It's
right.
not the people who are talking about it; it's the Nigerian system itself. So
We'll be
that's where we're at.
make those changes. Right, David. I wish we have longer time. Okay, thank you so much. This actually is impromptu. I kind of ambushed you midway, so I'm going to let you go, and I will have another time with you as this whole thing unravels. Okay, you have a wonderful night, Baba. Thank you.
All right.
Nice one, Baba. So that's David. And the brief explanation is managed to make with us tonight. I hope a lot of us who kind of participated in that, you have kept what you think you should keep, right? From all of that. Loaded. I'll cut that out at some point and then put that out there. Now, let us continue. I was talking to you about